the United States introduces a new generation dollar bill designed to be virtually impossible to counterfeit. It includes multiple security layers, fine watermarks, and a special ink effect that shifts from purple to gold depending on the viewing angle. No printer in the world can perfectly replicate it. Yet, despite this, an artist manages to recreate it by hand with astonishing precision. His work is so flawless that even banking experts cannot distinguish between real and fake notes. This raises a major question. Who is this man, and why is he using such rare talent for crime? It begins in a dark prison where a man named Lee is seen carefully crafting a fake postage stamp using extreme precision. Lee is not an ordinary inmate. He is a highly skilled visual artist and forger. He wants to send a letter from prison, but he cannot afford the $10 postage fee. Using his talent, he creates a perfect counterfeit stamp that is indistinguishable from the real one. When the prison postman arrives, Lee tries to hand over the letter, but the postman demands the payment first, setting the stage for a larger world of forgery and crime. In that moment, an elderly inmate sitting in front of Lee suddenly pretends to be seriously ill, shouting and causing chaos. As the prison postman turns his attention away, Lee quietly slips his letter into the mailbag. Who the letter is for and why he is sending it remains a mystery that will only be revealed later in the film. Shortly after, police arrive and take Lee out of the prison. We learn he had been incarcerated in Thailand. Now Hong Kong Inspector Ho Sai-wan brings him in for interrogation. In the interrogation room, Ho reads out a long list of charges: producing counterfeit currency, and a violent attack 2 years earlier on a central bank transport vehicle on a Canadian highway that resulted in the deaths of 7 security guards. There are also several other related incidents, all pointing to an international crime syndicate. Lee denies everything and insists the real mastermind is a powerful figure known as the painter, Ng Fuk Sang. However, he cannot provide clear details about the painter's identity or location. Instead, he appears terrified, breaking down emotionally and claiming the painter will kill him if exposed. He even begs to be sent back to prison for safety. Following this, police collect his blood and hair samples to match DNA evidence from crime scene. DNA results show every sample matches Lee exactly, making his guilt appear undeniable. Police pressure him again to confess, but he continues to deny everything. Outside the station, a woman named Yuan Man arrives with her lawyer hoping to secure bail. However, officers refuse, saying Lee is a key witness in major cases and cannot be released. They offer a condition. If he reveals the real identity of the master forger known as the painter, bail may be reconsidered. Yuan Man personally urges Lee to tell the truth. At that moment, Lee begins to open up and narrate events from the past. The story shifts years earlier, where we first see Lee and Yuan Man as young artists. Both are talented painters who gradually fall in love while working together. However, their styles are fundamentally different. Yuan Man creates original, expressive artwork, while Lee has no interest in originality. He is a master of copying existing famous paintings with astonishing precision. His replication skills are unmatched, but his work lacks recognition because it is not original. This ability, however, sets the stage for his future downfall. One day, an art gallery owner named Luke visits their studio. He is impressed by Yuan Man's work and offers to buy all her paintings, but dismisses Lee's copied works as worthless. Because Lee's works are just direct copies of other artists, gallery owner Luke refuses to display them in his exhibition. Yuan Man insists firmly that if he doesn't buy all the paintings together, he won't get any of them at all. After Luke leaves, Lee tells Yuan Man not to worry about him, claiming that all his paintings have already been purchased by a buyer from Tokyo. Later, Yuan Man discovers this was a lie. None of his work was actually sold. In reality, Lee lied because he didn't want his presence to become an obstacle in her artistic career. On the day of the exhibition, Yuan secretly places one of Lee's paintings alongside her own. The artworks receive praise from visitors, but one man openly mocks Lee's piece. Angered, Yuan splashes water on him. After the event, Lee approaches the same man to apologize, but the man laughs and reveals he was intentionally provoking him. He says he only did it to meet Lee privately because he had already bought Lee's painting from the exhibition. Later, over dinner at a restaurant, the man introduces himself as a painter, the painter Lee had been warning about. He praises Lee's extraordinary copying ability and tells him bluntly that such talent is rare and valuable. The next day, Lee meets him again and agrees to accept any offer. The painter warmly welcomes him into his team. The painter then reveals the true job, and it immediately shakes Lee to his core. He places a US dollar bill in front of him and says Lee must recreate it perfectly, down to every detail. In other words, he is being asked to counterfeit American currency. Furious at first, Lee rejects the offer outright. The painter then introduces himself as Sang, explaining that his family has been running a secret money counterfeiting operation for 3 generations without ever getting caught, thanks to extreme precision and discipline. He argues that modern US dollars are incredibly complex, with layered security designs and microscopic details that even high-end printers cannot replicate. That is exactly why Lee's hand-drawing ability is essential. Despite initially refusing, Lee eventually agrees after realizing his financial situation leaves him with few options. Meanwhile, Yuan Man is preparing to travel to the United States for an exhibition, so Lee leaves without telling her anything. The painter takes him to Canada, where he meets a highly experienced team of counterfeit experts, each with over 20 years in specialized roles. Together, they begin planning a large-scale operation. They explain that every U.S. bill features Benjamin Franklin's portrait, embedded with intricate microtext and security layers, including tiny lettering hidden within his collar reading, United States of America. The newer U.S. banknotes come with multiple advanced security layers, making them nearly impossible to counterfeit using normal printing or even high-end reproduction techniques. On top of that, the bills use a special color-shifting ink that appears purple from one angle and gold from another, known as a moire-style optical effect. This means the team must source not only the exact paper, but also this specialized ink. The painter's crew begins brainstorming solutions, with the biggest technical challenge being the watermark. To solve it, they study traditional Chinese multi-layer painting methods and design a 3-layer process where the watermark is embedded in the middle layer with extreme precision. Lee is assigned to execute this delicate work by hand. Before starting the real operation, Lee creates several practice notes, and his hyper-detailed work shocks the entire team with its accuracy. After training, they travel to Eastern Europe, where they purchase an old banknote printing press at auction. The next problem is paper. The painter reveals a key detail. The same high-grade paper used by the US government for printing money is also used to produce telephone directories. With this information, they track down a directory printing facility and directly purchase 500 tons of the specialized paper, preparing for large-scale production. Using the specially sourced paper, the team begins printing counterfeit banknotes based on Lee's precise design. The stolen printing press produces note after note, each one nearly indistinguishable from real US currency. However, one major problem remains unsolved: the color-shifting ink effect. This special ink, which changes from purple to gold depending on the angle, is only available through government supply channels. To obtain it, the painter devises a dangerous plan. During a central bank transport operation, his crew launches an armed attack on a security convoy carrying barrels of the required ink. Lee is forced to join them. As the convoy is ambushed, a violent shootout erupts between the guards and the gang. Caught in the chaos, Lee is completely overwhelmed. At one point, a guard aims directly at him, but the painter intervenes and kills the guard instantly. The situation escalates further as the painter detonates an explosive, destroying a nearby vehicle and killing multiple guards. The gang successfully steals the ink barrels and escapes. However, this is the first time Lee witnesses the painter's extreme violence up close. Shocked and disturbed, Lee realizes that the operation has crossed a dangerous line. What once seemed like controlled forgery is now tied to real bloodshed, and he understands there may be no way out of the situation he has entered. After integrating the color-shifting ink into their system, the team resumes printing counterfeit bills. This time, every note successfully displays the same purple-to-gold shifting effect as authentic US currency. The entire crew celebrates, realizing they have achieved something virtually indistinguishable from real money. However, Lee is increasingly disturbed by the violence behind their success. He questions the painter, asking whether more people will need to be killed once the ink runs out. He even suggests he could try developing the ink himself, but the painter shuts him down harshly. Under the painter's orders, his men begin distributing the counterfeit cash globally in briefcases, expanding their illegal empire rapidly. Meanwhile, law enforcement closes in. An undercover officer named Wing is assigned to the case and works alongside Inspector Ho Sai-wan to track the gang's movements. Disguised as buyers, they meet members of the organization at a yacht party in the ocean, though neither Lee nor the painter is present. Wing observes everything carefully before withdrawing. Unbeknownst to them, the painter's real plan is still unfolding. He arranges a meeting with a former client known as General. The next day, he travels with Lee to the General's residence. During the journey, Lee quietly reveals a crucial piece of information to the painter, hinting that tensions within the operation are beginning to rise. Lee then reveals that he knows about a special chemical that can recreate the color-shifting moire effect used in the ink. With this, they could replicate the dual-tone appearance of US currency without killing anyone else. The painter is impressed and promises Lee a luxury resort under his name, where he could live peacefully with UN Man. However, he suddenly hands Lee a remote detonator, ordering him to press it when signaled. Later, they arrive at General's mansion, where a seemingly normal business meeting begins. The general offers to buy large quantities of counterfeit bills and even invites the painter's entire crew to stay for 6 months, training his people to produce perfect forgeries. He jokes that Lee's father would have agreed instantly to such a deal. This comment triggers a sudden shift in the painter's expression. He stands, walks toward the general, and whispers that 7 years ago, the general killed his father. The meeting is no longer business. It's revenge. The painter reveals a bomb strapped to his body and screams at Lee to press the remote. Terrified, Lee's hands shake uncontrollably and he drops it. The switch activates, but the explosion does not come from the painter's body. Instead, something entirely unexpected happens, changing the situation instantly. The bombs on the painter's body turn out to be fake. The real explosion happens outside, targeting his parked vehicle. In reality, the painter has been carrying an entire car rigged with explosives. The blast devastates the area, killing many of the general's men instantly. Survivors rush in and open fire on the painter, but he responds with dual pistols, taking down attackers in a highly skilled, almost cinematic shootout. However, this is only the beginning. The general's forces are heavily armed as well, and chaos escalates further when a hidden ally of the painter launches continuous rocket attacks from the nearby forest, setting the battlefield ablaze and destroying structures around them. Amid the destruction, Lee is forced to hide and survive the crossfire. Additional reinforcements from the painter arrive, overwhelming the general's side. Eventually, the general himself appears in an armored vehicle and attacks directly. The painter counters with precision shots, disabling and flipping the vehicle, finally killing him. During the chaos, a woman named Ching, who worked for the general, is set on fire. Lee rushes in and extinguishes the flames, but she is left severely burned. After the battle, the painter takes her to a hospital while escaping the scene, leaving behind a trail of destruction and bloodshed. Afterward, the painter uses explosives to completely destroy the general's entire estate, wiping it off the map. A month later, Ching slowly recovers from her injuries. The painter gives her a new identity, along with a passport, naming her Yuhan. Lee becomes furious upon hearing this, as Yuan is the name of his late lover, but the painter ignores his protest. With her new identity, Ching joins the painter's gang, gradually developing a subtle attachment toward Lee, though he largely ignores her. Meanwhile, the group visits UN Man's art exhibition. The painter tells Lee that he has arranged a luxury resort for him, promising a peaceful life with UN Man. Lee bitterly asks whether she would ever accept a resort bought with criminal money. At that moment, they learn a shocking truth. UN Man is engaged to Luke, the art gallery owner. Lee had cut all communication with her for a long time, leading her to move on and build a relationship with Luke. Devastated, Lee quietly leaves the exhibition and tells the painter he wants to quit the operation along with Ching. The painter becomes furious and insults him, ordering Lee to finish the ink production first before leaving. Meanwhile, undercover officer Wing, still investigating, attempts to meet the painter directly. However, the painter already suspects a mole. He discovers that a gang member named Uncle Yan has purchased a watch using their counterfeit money, violating their strict rule that no one may use their own fake currency for personal purchases. Yan is confirmed to have violated the gang's strict rules, and because of his mistake, the police have already traced their operation. The painter decides to punish him. Yan collapses in front of him, crying and begging for mercy for his wife and daughter, knowing the gang's brutal rule. If someone disobeys, their family is also eliminated. But the painter shows no sympathy and coldly shoots him dead. Witnessing this, Lee finally snaps and lunges at the painter, but the painter fires a shot past his ear and punches him hard, knocking him back. Meanwhile, undercover officer Wing tries once again to meet the painter in disguise. However, the painter had already predicted everything. Mid-conversation, he orders Lee to shoot Wing. Lee freezes and cannot act, so the painter kills Wing himself. Afterward, the painter reveals a shocking truth that breaks Lee emotionally. UN Man and her fiancé Luke are being held hostage. The painter had kidnapped them specifically to control Lee. He then orders Lee to shoot Luke. Lee refuses and instead aims his gun at the painter. In response, the painter grabs his arm, and during the struggle, the trigger is pulled accidentally, killing Luke. Immediately after, chaos erupts as Lee and the painter engage in a brutal, close-range gunfight. In the chaos, Ching suddenly turns against the painter's men, taking them out one by one. In the final moment, Lee shoots the painter directly in the chest, killing him. Lee then tries to rescue Yuan Man, but Qing stops him, threatening to kill Yuan Man if he moves. Qing, who had developed feelings for Lee, refuses to let Yuan Man go to him. With no choice left, Lee is forced to leave Yuan Man behind and escape. Meanwhile, Qing takes the bag of money meant for Yuan Man and heads to the resort the painter had arranged. The next morning, Lee reads in the news that the painter's body was never found, leading him to suspect he might still be alive and planning revenge on Yuan Man. Panicked, Lee rushes out to save her, but is arrested by police on the way. This connects back to the opening scene, where police demand he reveal everything about the painter in exchange for bail. Yuan Man appears, having come to help him after receiving his apology letter sent from prison using the fake stamp. With her urging, Lee finally confesses the entire story to the police and draws a sketch of the painter. He is granted bail and taken to a hotel, where he apologizes to Yuan Man, and they share a quiet, emotional, and romantic moment. At that moment, Inspector Ho notices a police officer in uniform whose face perfectly matches the sketch of the painter drawn by Lee. Ironically, the man is trying to enter the police station in his uniform, so Ho and his team immediately arrest him, believing they've finally captured the country's most wanted criminal. The man, however, is shocked and insists he is just an ordinary police constable, showing his ID to prove it. This completely confuses Ho, and he begins to realize something is wrong. But the real truth is far darker. The entire identity of the painter turns out to be a fabrication created by Lee himself. There is no separate mastermind, from designing counterfeit currency to orchestrating violent attacks, including the central bank convoy assault and the massacre at the general's estate. Everything was actually carried out by Lee alone. To protect himself and mislead authorities, he invented the fictional criminal painter and shifted all blame onto him. Even the sketch used to identify the painter was based on the face of that innocent police constable Lee had seen earlier, cleverly framing him as the suspect. For the entire time, everyone believed Lee was a forced participant, but in reality, he was the true mastermind behind the entire operation. A far more disturbing truth is then revealed. After leaving China, Lee and Yuan Man never actually met again. The woman who went to rescue him at the police station and shared an intimate moment with him at the hotel was not Yuan Man at all. It was Qing, who had undergone plastic surgery to look exactly like her. After Qing's face was burned during the general's estate incident, Lee had her surgically transformed into Yuan Man's appearance. Unable to be with the real Yuan Man, he replaced her with Qing, keeping her close by living under Yuan Man's identity. Qing eventually becomes frustrated, realizing Lee never truly loved her as herself, only as a replacement. In anger, she kidnaps the real Yuan Man and her fiancé Luke, forcing Lee to choose by demanding he kill them if he truly loves her. A gunfight breaks out and Luke is killed. Lee escapes but is later arrested, only for Qing to rescue him again after receiving his prison apology letter. Meanwhile, Inspector Ho rushes to the hotel, but it's too late. Lee and Qing have already eliminated the guards and fled. They escape on a boat across the sea. However, Qing then reveals a final truth to Lee that completely shatters him emotionally. Qing then reveals that she has been deliberately circling the boat to keep them exposed. Before coming there, she even wrote the boat's number on a lighter so police could track them easily. Her motive is clear. She has realized Lee never truly loved her, only the image of Yuan Man he forced onto her. Feeling used and betrayed, she decides to take revenge. Lee soon notices police surrounding them from all sides. He tries to escape by steering the boat away, but Qing had already planted explosives on board. She triggers them, and a massive explosion engulfs the vessel in flames. Both of them are consumed in the blast. After Lee's death, Inspector Ho meets the real Yuan Man and informs her they have identified the painter. Yuan Man, who was blindfolded during the kidnapping, had no idea Lee was the painter. When shown Lee's photo, she calmly says she recognizes him as a former neighbor. This reveals a painful truth. Lee and Yuan Man were never truly in a relationship. His love was entirely one-sided. He was obsessed with her, trying to become someone worthy in her eyes. Unable to be an original artist like her, he relied on his copying skills and chose a criminal path, hoping to earn money and eventually stand before her with dignity. But in the end, that dream collapses completely. In the dark waters of the sea, broken pieces of the boat drift aimlessly, along with ashes of burned paper scattered across the surface. It marks the meaningless end of an extraordinary talent. The person Lee loved never truly knew him, and the one who loved him was never valued in return. This moment captures the tragic final truth of a story filled with twists, deception, and obsession. In the end, everything collapses into silence and emptiness, leaving only the consequences of choices made in the shadows. And with that haunting image, the film comes to a close. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.